The night I discovered the truth about my marriage began like a dream and ended like a nightmare. I had spent weeks planning our anniversary dinner, thinking it would be a moment of love, celebration, and renewal. Instead, it became the moment my world split open. I want you to hear every detail, because what happened to me could happen to anyone who trusts too blindly. And before I continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with your friends, because stories like mine deserve to be heard, and maybe it will save someone else from walking into the same kind of trap. I had been married to Michael for 7 years, 7 years of trying to believe in a man who swore he loved me, who promised me I was his future, who claimed our marriage was his priority. I wanted to believe him so badly that I ignored the late nights, the excuses about business meetings, the sudden trips that never included me. Love, or maybe denial, kept me blind. But anniversaries have a way of forcing the truth into the light. I spent all afternoon getting ready for the dinner he had insisted he would plan. Michael told me it was a surprise, something special, something that would remind us both why we fell in love. I wore the dress he once said made me look like the only woman in the room. I curled my hair, painted my lips, and held on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, tonight he would prove his devotion. When we arrived at the restaurant, I noticed his nerves immediately. His hand was cold in mine, his smile forced, his eyes darting like a man hiding something. My stomach tightened, but I told myself not to ruin the night with suspicion. We walked inside, the lights soft, the scent of roasted garlic and expensive wine floating in the air. A waiter led us to a private corner table, and I almost let myself breathe. But then she walked in. His ex, not just any ex, the woman he had once called the love of his life, the woman he swore he would never speak to again, the woman who had broken his heart long before I came along. And there she was, smiling at him like she had never left, sliding into the seat he had pulled out for her, as if she belonged there. My heart dropped so violently I could feel the blood drain from my face. I looked at him, waiting for an explanation, waiting for him to tell me it was a mistake, that she had just shown up uninvited. But the way he leaned toward her, the way his eyes lit up in a way they hadn't for me in years, told me everything I needed to know. "Michael," I whispered, my voice sharp and low, "what is she doing here?" He didn't even flinch. "I thought it would be nice," he said calmly, as if this betrayal was nothing, "for all of us to catch up, to reconnect." The word felt like poison dripping down my throat. He brought his ex to our anniversary dinner under the guise of reconnecting. My pulse hammered in my ears, the room tilted, and I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Not yet, because something inside me knew that the worst was still coming, and if I let my rage explode too soon, I would miss the truth unfolding before my eyes. I watched them, the way he smiled at her jokes, the way his hand brushed hers on the table, the way he leaned so close I could smell her perfume mingling with his cologne. It wasn't a dinner to celebrate 7 years of marriage. It was a reunion disguised as a betrayal. My mind raced back through the months leading up to this night, the trips, the late-night phone calls he would take in the garage, the sudden change in his past words. It all clicked together like shards of glass cutting into my chest. She hadn't just walked into our dinner tonight. She had been walking back into his life for a long time, and I had been too blind to see it. The waiter poured champagne, and I forced a smile, gripping the glass so tightly I thought it would shatter in my hand. She raised her glass to him, not to me, and he clinked it with hers before turning to me with an expression that dared me to object. "2 second chances," she said. I felt the room spin. Second chances, on my anniversary, with my husband. Rage burned in me, but beneath it was a colder, sharper emotion. Clarity. I was done playing the quiet wife. I was done swallowing betrayal like it was my duty. If he thought he could humiliate me so publicly, he was about to learn that I was not the kind of woman who sits silently while her marriage crumbles, in front of strangers. I set down my glass carefully, my hand trembling not from fear but from the weight of the decision forming in my mind. I looked him straight in the eye, and for the first time in years, I felt powerful. "You know what, Michael?" I said, my voice steady, my heart thundering in my chest. "Enjoy your dinner. Enjoy your second chance. Because I am not going to sit here and be the third wheel at my own anniversary. You wanted her here. Fine. Now you can have her." I stood, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Gasps echoed around the room as diners turned to watch. His face froze in shock, her smirk faltered, and I knew I had struck the first blow. Then I walked away. I didn't just leave the table, I left the restaurant, the lies, the humiliation. I walked straight into the night with nothing but my purse and the fire of betrayal burning inside me. That was the moment my life changed forever, because what began as the most humiliating night of my life would turn into the story of my revenge, my rebirth, and the downfall of the man who thought I would always stay silent. And this was only the beginning. When I stormed out of that restaurant, the cool night air hit my face like a slap of freedom and fury. My heels clicked against the pavement with every step, a rhythm that matched the pounding of my heart. For 7 years I had been the loyal wife, the quiet supporter, the woman who put my husband's needs above her own. That version of me ended the second he pulled out a chair for his ex at our anniversary dinner. I kept walking, not even sure where I was going. My phone buzzed in my purse, again and again, Michael's name flashing across the screen. I refused to answer. What could he possibly say? That it was a misunderstanding, that I had overreacted. I could already hear his excuses, and I was done giving him the power to twist my reality. I stopped on the sidewalk under the glow of a streetlight and finally let the tears fall. Not because I still loved him the way I once did, but because betrayal has a way of cutting deeper than anger. It wasn't just about another woman at dinner. It was about every promise he had broken, every time he made me believe I was enough, only to prove I was disposable. A taxi pulled up, and I got in without hesitation. "Take me anywhere but here," I told the driver, my voice cracking under the weight of what I had just done. He nodded silently, and as the city blurred past the window, I realized I had no plan. But maybe that was the beginning of freedom, walking away without knowing what came next. By the time I reached home, I was trembling. Our house, the place where I had poured my love into every detail, felt like a stranger's home. The photos on the walls mocked me, smiling faces of a marriage that was already crumbling long before tonight. I walked straight to the bedroom and pulled out a suitcase. For once, I didn't think about him, or what he would say, or what people would think. I thought about myself as I packed. The phone rang again. I ignored it. Then came the sound of tires screeching into the driveway, the slam of a car door, and Michael's frantic voice calling my name. He stormed into the house, his tie loose, his face flushed with panic. "What the hell was that, Sarah?" he shouted. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You walked out like some—" I cut him off, my voice sharper than I had ever heard it. "Don't you dare make this about your embarrassment, Michael. You brought your ex to our anniversary dinner. You humiliated me. You betrayed me in front of an entire restaurant, and now you want to play the victim." He flinched, his anger faltering into something closer to guilt. "But only for a moment. You're overreacting. It was supposed to be a surprise. I thought maybe if we all talked, you would understand that she's just a friend now, that there's nothing going on." I laughed, bitter and hollow. "Nothing going on? Do you think I'm blind? Do you think I didn't see the way you looked at her? The way your hand brushed hers? You don't bring your ex to a marriage celebration unless you want her there for more than conversation." He stepped closer, his voice low and defensive. "You're twisting it. You always twist things. I wanted to show you that I can be honest, that I don't have secrets." "Honest," I snapped. "Honest would have been telling me she was coming before I walked in and saw her sitting at our table. Honest would have been admitting months ago that you were talking to her again. Don't you dare stand there and act like you've done me a favor." His silence was my confirmation. Every instinct I had ignored came rushing back. The late-night texts, the business trips, the sudden change in his past words. She had never really been gone. I zipped the suitcase shut, the sound final and sharp. "I'm done," I said quietly. Michael's face paled. "Done? What do you mean done? You can't just walk away because of one dinner." "One dinner," I repeated, my voice rising. "That wasn't just a dinner, Michael. That was the moment you showed me who you really are. You don't respect me. You don't love me. You don't even see me. And I won't waste another year, another day, another second of my life waiting for you to decide if I matter." He reached for me, but I pulled back, my suitcase in hand. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not fear of losing me, but fear of losing control. "You'll regret this," he said bitterly. "You'll see that no one else will love you the way I do." Bitterly. "You'll see that no one else will love you the way I do." I looked him straight in the eye, my voice calm and certain. "If this is love, I would rather be alone forever." With that, I walked out the door, leaving him standing in the wreckage of the life he thought he controlled. The night swallowed me as I stepped outside with my suitcase, but instead of fear, I felt something else. Possibility. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew it was somewhere better than where I had been. For 7 years, I had been tethered to a man who thought he could keep me small. Tonight, I had cut the cord. I checked into a small hotel downtown, the kind of place where no one asks questions and no one cares why your eyes are red from crying. I sat on the bed, staring at the ceiling, and let the silence wash over me. For the first time in years, the quiet felt like freedom instead of loneliness. But even as I tried to breathe, I knew this wasn't the end. Men like Michael don't let go easily. They fight to keep their secrets hidden, their control intact, their image polished. And if I was going to truly free myself, I would need more than just a suitcase and courage. I would need proof. I would need to unravel every lie he had built around me. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from an unknown number. My heart skipped. I opened it, and my hands shook as I read the words. You deserve better than him. Meet me tomorrow. I'll tell you everything. No name, no explanation, just a promise of answers. I stared at the message, my mind spinning. Who was it? A friend? A stranger? Someone who knew about Michael's double life? I didn't know, but I knew one thing for certain. If I wanted to reclaim my power, if I wanted to expose the truth, I had to follow this thread wherever it led. The night had ended with betrayal, but the morning would bring revelation. And whatever waited for me, I was no longer afraid. Asterisk, the message burned on the screen like a spark waiting to ignite everything I thought I knew. You deserve better than him. Meet me tomorrow. I'll tell you everything. No name, no explanation, just a demand for trust from a stranger. I read it again and again, my pulse racing faster each time. Who knew about Michael? Who was willing to meet me in secret to expose his lies? My mind cycled through every possibility. Maybe it was a coworker who had seen him with her. Maybe it was a friend of his ex who wanted to warn me. Or maybe it was someone closer, someone who had been watching quietly while I drowned in ignorance. Sleep never came that night. I lay awake in the hotel bed, my thoughts spiraling between dread and determination. If this was a trap, I would walk into it with my eyes open. If it was the truth, then tomorrow would be the day I began dismantling the man who betrayed me. By morning, I had made my decision. I showered, dressed, and stared at my reflection in the mirror. The woman who looked back at me was not the same one who had walked into that restaurant the night before. My eyes no longer held the desperation of a wife begging for love. They carried fire. The kind of fire that only betrayal can spark. The message included a time and place. 10 o'clock at a quiet cafe on the east side of town. It was not the kind of place Michael would ever go. Too simple, too ordinary for a man obsessed with appearances. That detail alone told me the sender wanted privacy, not attention. I arrived 15 minutes early. The air crisp with the smell of roasted coffee beans and freshly baked bread. My nerves pulsed in my fingertips as I gripped the strap of my bag. Every person who walked past the cafe door made my chest tighten. Then I saw her. It was not who I expected. A woman, mid-30s, with tired eyes and a hesitant smile. She looked ordinary, almost fragile. Yet there was something in the way she carried herself that hinted at strength beneath the weariness. She walked directly to my table and sat across from me without waiting for permission. "You're Sarah," she said softly. "Yes," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "And you are?" "My name is Emily," she said, glancing around before leaning closer. "I know your husband, and I know what he's been doing." The words slammed into me like a physical blow. I forced myself to breathe slowly, not to show how badly I wanted her to keep talking. "How do you know him?" I asked carefully. Her lips trembled as she spoke. "Because I used to be you." For a moment, I did not understand. Then the truth unfurled like a blade cutting through fog. She had been his mistress. "I was with Michael for 2 years," Emily continued, her voice breaking. "I believed every promise he made. He told me he was unhappy in his marriage, that he was only staying for financial reasons, that he would leave you as soon as the timing was right. I waited, Sarah. I gave him everything, and in the end, he left me too. He went back to you, as if I never existed. But now I see he never really left anyone. He just keeps circling back, using us when it benefits him." Her confession made my stomach twist. Anger and pity colliding inside me. "Why tell me this now?" I demanded. "Why not tell me years ago when it could have spared me 7 wasted years?" She lowered her eyes, shame flickering across her face. "Because I was ashamed. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I disappeared, I could erase the mistake. But when I saw him again, with Hertha X, my guilt was too heavy. I could not stay silent anymore." I leaned back, processing her words, my hands clenched around my coffee cup, the ceramic warm against my skin. So you are saying he has been playing both of us? All of us, yes, she whispered. And worse than that, Sarah, he is lying about more than women. He has secrets, financial ones. He used my name to open accounts. I found out when debt collectors started calling. He is not just unfaithful. He is dangerous. The room seemed to shrink around me. Betrayal was one thing, but fraud was another. It meant my marriage was not just a personal tragedy. It was a trap with consequences that could destroy more than my heart. I studied Emily, searching her face for any sign of deceit. But what I saw was not manipulation. It was a woman scarred by the same man who had scarred me. Her pain was real. Her warning was genuine. Why come to me now? I asked again, softer this time. Because I think he is planning something bigger, she said urgently. And if you stay, you will be the one left with the blame. I am telling you this because I do not want you to suffer the way I did. The weight of her words pressed down on me. But instead of crushing me, it solidified my resolve. Michael had thought he could parade his ex in front of me, and I would crumble. He had thought I would retreat quietly, too broken to fight back. But now I had something he did not know I possessed, the truth, and a witness to prove it. Thank you, I said firmly, meeting Emily's eyes. You did the right thing, and I promise you, he will not get away with this. Not with me. She nodded, relief softening her features. Be careful, Sarah. He is charming, but underneath it, he is ruthless. Do not underestimate what he will do to protect himself. I left the cafe with my mind blazing. Every step I took felt heavier, charged with the knowledge of what I carried now. Michael had underestimated me for years, thinking I would always forgive, always stay quiet. But this time, I was not going to be silent. I was going to make him face the weight of every lie he had told. That night, back in the hotel, I opened my laptop and began gathering everything I had. Emails, bank statements, text messages, receipts, every scrap of evidence that pointed to the life he had built on deceit. I created a folder titled Truth and filled it until the screen glowed with proof of the man he really was. As I worked, I felt something shift inside me. This was no longer just about heartbreak. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming my voice after years of being silenced. It was about ensuring that no other woman, no other soul, would fall into the web Michael spun so carelessly. And in that moment, I knew I would not just leave him. I would destroy the empire of lies he had built, piece by piece, until there was nothing left. The anniversary dinner had been his stage, his humiliation of me, but the finale would be mine. The folder on my laptop glowed with evidence, but I knew documents alone were not enough to destroy Michael. If he had managed to keep two women fooled for years, if he had lied so convincingly that even I believed him, then I would need more than paper to take him down. I would need people, voices, witnesses, allies who could confirm what he was, strip him of his facade, and leave him with nothing but the ashes of his reputation. The morning after my meeting with Emily, I returned to the cafe, not to see her again but to think in a place away from the suffocating walls of my hotel room. The air was thick with the scent of roasted beans and vanilla syrup. Around me, people sipped lattes, laughed, and lived ordinary lives. I envied them for their normalcy, for not knowing the weight of betrayal. But envy quickly turned to determination. I had wasted too much time wishing for peace. Now I would make war. I began a list in my notebook. Names of people connected to Michael who might know his secrets, his co-workers, his old business partners, anyone he had wronged. Michael thrived on charm, but charm leaves a trail. People forgive, but rarely forget. If I could track them down, I could build a chorus of voices against him. The first name that came to mind was Laura, one of his former colleagues. I remembered her from a company holiday party years ago. She had pulled me aside, her smile tight, and whispered, "Be careful with him." At the time, I had brushed it off, assuming it was jealousy. Now I wondered if it had been a warning disguised as politeness. I found her on social media and sent a message. Hours later, my phone buzzed with her reply. "I was wondering when you'd finally reach out." My pulse quickened as I typed back, "Do you know something about Michael?" Her response came instantly. "Meet me tomorrow. I'll tell you everything." The next day, I walked into a small wine bar where Laura waited at a corner table. She looked older than I remembered, her hair streaked with silver, but her eyes were sharp and direct. She did not waste time on pleasantries. "You finally see it, don't you?" she said as soon as I sat down. "See what?" I asked, that Michael is a fraud. He's always been one. Her words sent a chill down my spine. Tell me everything, I urged. Laura sipped her wine, then leaned forward. I worked with him for 5 years. He lied to everyone, manipulated reports, shifted blame, took credit for work he never did. But the worst was what he did with money. He siphoned funds from projects, small amounts so no one would notice, and redirected them into accounts I could never trace. When I confronted him, he threatened me, said he'd ruin my career, that no one would believe me because he had charm and I had nothing. So I quit before he could follow through. I clenched my fists under the table, fury coursing through me. Why didn't you expose him then? Her eyes hardened. Because people like Michael don't fall easily. He knows how to twist a story, how to paint himself as the victim. I wasn't strong enough then, but maybe you are. Her words were not just information, they were permission. Permission to fight, permission to burn him down without guilt. I am, I said firmly, and I'll make sure everyone sees who he really is. As we parted, Laura handed me a flash drive. Proof, she said. Old files I kept, just in case. Use them wisely. That night, back in my hotel, I plugged in the drive. Spreadsheets, emails, documents. It was all there. Evidence of his corruption at work. Evidence that could ruin not just his marriage but his career. My folder titled Truth grew heavier, thicker, deadlier. But there was one more name on my list I could not ignore. His ex. The very woman he had dragged to our anniversary dinner. If anyone knew his darkest secrets, it was her. And if she had agreed to sit at that table and smirk in my direction, she was not just a pawn. She was part of the game. Reaching her would not be easy. Michael guarded her fiercely, always keeping her within his orbit, always keeping me in the dark. But betrayal has a way of loosening lips, and I was certain that beneath her smugness was a reservoir of resentment. He could not have been loyal to her either. Men like him never were. I began searching, tracing her through mutual connections, digging into her online presence. It took hours, but eventually I found her contact information buried on an old community board post. My heart pounded as I drafted the message. You don't know me, but I think we both know Michael isn't the man he pretends to be. If you want to talk, I'll listen. I hit send and waited. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, a reply appeared. Meet me tomorrow, noon, the park by the fountain. The next day, the park was bright with sunlight, children running across the grass, couples strolling hand in hand. I sat on a bench near the fountain, my nerves sparking like live wires. Then she appeared. She was beautiful, undeniably so. But there was something brittle about her beauty, like glass ready to shatter. She walked with a confidence that seemed rehearsed, a performance rather than truth. She sat beside me without greeting, her eyes scanning the crowd. So, you're his wife, she said, her voice smooth but edged with bitterness. I corrected. Not anymore. A sharp smile curved her lips. Good, he doesn't deserve anyone's loyalty. Then, why were you with him at our anniversary dinner? I demanded. Her smile faltered. Because he begged me. Said he wanted to show me he had power over you. Said you'd never leave, that you were too weak. He thought humiliating you would prove he still controlled us both. The admission hit me like fire to dry wood. And you agreed? I asked, my voice cold. She looked away. At first, yes, out of spite, maybe, but sitting there, watching the pain in your eyes, I realized I wasn't humiliating you. I was humiliating myself. I was the fool who let him pull me back into his games. Her words softened something in me, though anger still simmered. So why meet me now? Because I want him to fall, she said, her eyes flashing with something raw. He lied to me too. Sarah, promised me he would leave you, promised me a future that never came. He took my savings, said it was for an investment. I never saw that money again. I stayed silent because I was ashamed. But seeing you walk out of that restaurant, leaving him behind, it reminded me of what strength looks like. I want him destroyed as much as you do. The park seemed to fade around us, the noise of laughter and water muffled by the intensity of her words. Another ally, another piece of the puzzle. I leaned closer. Then help me. Together, we can make sure no one else ever falls for his lies. She nodded slowly, a new determination settling over her features. I'll give you everything I have. Bank statements, messages, whatever it takes. But promise me one thing when he falls. Make sure he knows it was us who pushed him. I promise, I said. As we parted, I felt the weight of momentum building. First Emily, then Laura, now his ex. One by one, the women and colleagues he had discarded were rising like shadows from his past. each carrying a fragment of the truth. Alone, we had been powerless. Together, we were unstoppable. That night, I opened my folder again. It was no longer just a collection of documents. It was a weapon, sharp and ready. Michael thought he was untouchable. That charm could erase consequences. But charm has an expiration date, and his was about to end. I sat in the quiet of my hotel room, the glow of the screen illuminating my face, and whispered to myself, "You brought her to our dinner to humiliate me. Now I'll bring the world to yours, and you'll choke on the truth." And for the first time since that disastrous anniversary night, I smiled. The evidence was heavy in my hands, though it lived inside a slim folder on my laptop. Bank records, stolen money, text messages, testimonies from women who once trusted him. Every lie Michael told had been reduced to cold proof. But evidence, no matter how damning, is useless until it is wielded. It was time to strike. The first move had to be subtle, a spark instead of an explosion. He thrived on control, on manipulating the narrative. If I attacked too directly, he would twist it into a story where I was the villain. I could not give him that chance. Instead, I would let the truth seep through the cracks of his carefully built facade until it swallowed him whole. I began with an email, short, anonymous, impossible to trace. I sent it to the board of directors at his company. The subject line was simple: "You should know what your golden boy has been hiding." Attached were files Laura had given me, the ones that proved he siphoned money from projects into secret accounts. I hit send and sat back, my heart pounding. The first strike had been delivered. Now, I just had to wait. By mid-afternoon, I received my answer. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Michael is under review. Whatever you did, it worked." I did not respond. I simply smiled. It was not enough to ruin him yet, but it was the beginning. A seed of doubt had been planted in the minds of those who once praised him. That seed would grow until it strangled his reputation. But I was not finished. Not even close. The next step required more than anonymous whispers. It required a stage, a moment so public that he could not spin it, not even with all his charm. I decided on a charity gala scheduled for the following week. Michael loved gala. They were his hunting grounds, places where he could flaunt his charm and connections. What better place to expose him than in front of the very people whose respect he craved most? I reached out to his ex again, the woman who had once smirked across the dinner table at me. She arrived at the cafe looking sharper this time, her bitterness replaced with determination. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked as she sat down. "Once you start, there's no going back." I met her gaze without hesitation. "I'm sure. He humiliated me publicly. I'll return the favor, but I need you to play a part." Her lips curved into a thin smile. "Tell me what to do." Together, we crafted the plan. She would attend the gala on his arm, just as he wanted. Michael would think he had her back in his web, his trophy to flaunt. But during the night, she would step aside, allowing me to confront him in front of everyone. And when the evidence began to leak, when his mask slipped, there would be no escape. But I did not want to rely solely on humiliation. I wanted him cornered from every side. So I reached out to Emily again, the woman who had once loved him, the woman he had used like a pawn. "You said he opened accounts in your name," I reminded her over the phone. "Do you still have proof?" "Yes," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I kept everything." "Why?" "Because if we go to the authorities, they'll need more than stories. They'll need documents. And if you're willing, we can give them exactly that." There was silence for a moment, then a deep breath. "I'll do it. He ruined me, Sarah. If you're finally taking him down, I'll stand with you." Piece by piece, the army against him grew. Each woman, each colleague, each scrap of evidence was a weapon in my arsenal. He had thought he could discard us and move on, but we were no longer victims. We were his reckoning. Move on, but we were no longer victims. We were his reckoning. The night before the gala, I sat in my hotel room with the folder open, reviewing everything one last time. My nerves were sharp, my mind buzzing with what was to come. I whispered to myself the same words I had spoken before. "You thought you could humiliate me, but tomorrow, you'll be the one who can't lift your head." The day of the gala arrived with a strange calmness in me. I dressed in a black gown, simple yet striking, the kind of gown that made a statement without begging for attention. My hair was pinned back, my makeup sharp, my expression carved from steel. I was no longer the wife he once dismissed. I was his executioner. The ballroom sparkled with chandeliers and laughter, the air filled with the sound of clinking glasses and soft music. I entered unnoticed, blending into the crowd. Across the room, I spotted him instantly. Michael, in his tailored suit, smiling that same polished smile he had used to deceive us all. Beside him, as planned, was his ex, her hand hooked into his arm. He looked untouchable, untarnished, as if the world belonged to him, but the world was about to shift. I waited until the speeches began, until the crowd's attention was gathered. Then I moved forward, my heels clicking against the marble floor, each step echoing like a drumbeat of war. When I reached the center of the room, I turned to face the audience. "Excuse me," I said, my voice clear and strong. The microphone in my hand carried my words through the ballroom. "Before this night continues, I think you should all know the truth about the man you've been celebrating." A hush fell over the room. All eyes turned to me. Michael's smile froze, his face draining of color. "Sarah," he hissed, stepping forward. "What are you doing?" "What you never thought I'd have the courage to do," I replied. I held up the flash drive Laura had given me. "This contains proof of Michael's embezzlement, his lies, his fraud, documents that show he has stolen money, manipulated colleagues, and destroyed lives. I was his wife, and I saw everything. Tonight, so will you." Gasps rippled through the crowd, whispers grew into murmurs, and eyes turned toward Michael with suspicion. He reached for me, his mask slipping into desperation. But his ex stepped between us, her voice sharp as a blade. "She's telling the truth," she declared, loud enough for everyone to hear. I was there. I saw what he did, and I was his victim too. The room erupted. Questions flew. People demanded answers, and Michael's charm shattered under the weight of exposure. He stammered, denied, tried to twist the narrative, but it was too late. The seed of doubt I had planted had grown into a wildfire, and now it was consuming him. Security stepped in as the chaos spread, and I slipped out quietly, my heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and satisfaction. It was not over yet, far from it, but the first strike had landed, and it had landed hard. As I walked into the night air, cool and crisp against my skin, I felt lighter. For the first time in years, I was not the one carrying the shame. He was, and soon, the world would carry it for him. The morning after the gala, my phone was alive with notifications. News outlets had already picked up the story. Prominent businessman under investigation for fraud. His name flashed across headlines, his photo plastered beside words like embezzlement and corruption. It was only the beginning, but it was enough. I sat in my hotel room, scrolling through the chaos, a cup of coffee in my hand. The comments section on every article was brutal. People who once admired him now questioned everything. Some claimed they had always suspected. Others demanded answers. The mask he had worn so carefully for years had cracked, and now the world could see the rot beneath. A message appeared on my phone from Laura. "You lit the fire. Now watch him burn." But Michael was not a man who surrendered easily. By noon, he was already on the offensive. He called reporters, spinning lies about a bitter ex-wife, seeking revenge. He painted himself as the victim of a smear campaign. He posted a carefully crafted statement on social media, filled with the same polished charm that had fooled us all. "These allegations are false. I am being targeted by individuals with personal grudges. The truth will come out, and my reputation will remain intact." I almost laughed when I read it. He still believed he could talk his way out of this. He still believed charm was enough to erase evidence. But charm cannot erase bank statements. It cannot erase testimonies. It cannot erase the truth. I watched his statement spread, knowing it would buy him time with some, but not forever. People love a scandal, but they love a downfall even more. And his was only just beginning. By evening, the phone calls began, first from his lawyer, who left me 3 voicemails filled with veiled threats, then from Michael himself. "Sarah," his voice growled through the speaker. "We need to talk. Right now." I let the call go to voicemail. Minutes later, another call. This time, a message. "If you don't stop this, you'll regret it. I'll take everything from you. Do you hear me? Everything." His desperation was music to my ears. For years, I had been the one begging, pleading, bending myself to his demands. Now, he was the one scrambling, clawing, powerless to stop the storm I had unleashed. But threats alone were not enough to shake me. I had allies now. Emily called later that night, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. "He called me too," she said. "Said if I didn't keep quiet, he'd ruin me. But I don't care anymore. I sent the documents to the authorities this morning. They're opening a case." Relief surged through me. "You did the right thing," I told her. Laura texted not long after. The board suspended him. He's done at the company. Piece by piece, his empire was collapsing. Still, I knew Michael well enough to understand he would not go down without a fight. He was like a wounded animal, cornered, dangerous, unpredictable. If I wanted to win completely, I had to stay one step ahead. So I started digging deeper. Late into the night, I scoured through the files, cross-referencing dates and amounts, looking for patterns, and there it was, a trail leading to an offshore account. It was not just fraud at work, it was bigger. He had been laundering money, hiding it under layers of false names and companies. I sat back, stunned by the scale of it. This was no longer just a personal betrayal. It was a crime that could bring federal charges. The thought should have frightened me, but instead, it fueled me. The higher the stakes, the harder his fall would be. The next day, I met with his ex again. We sat in the park, the same spot as before, but this time, her expression was sharper, her resolve unshakable. He's losing control, she said. I heard from a mutual friend he's furious, blaming everyone but himself. He's trying to convince investors to stick by him, but they're pulling out. He's unraveling. Sarah, good, I said, because we're not finished. I found an offshore account. If we can trace it, if we can link it directly to him, it will end him completely. Her eyes widened. Do you know how dangerous that is? I know, I said, my voice steady, but I'm not afraid anymore. He took everything from me, my trust, my marriage, my peace. I'll take everything from him. That night, I contacted a friend of Laura's, a forensic accountant. He agreed to look at the files. Hours later, he called me back, his voice taut with urgency. Whoever this man is, he's been laundering serious money. We're talking millions. And if you have more proof, the authorities will eat this up. But be careful, men like him don't just lie. They fight dirty. I thanked him and hung up, my resolve stronger than ever. Michael had built his life on lies, but lies cannot stand forever. Gravity always wins, and he was about to crash. The pressure mounted quickly. By the third day after the gala, reporters camped outside his house. Cameras flashed as he left, his once perfect smile now a grimace. Online, the tide turned against him. Every charm-filled word he posted was met with skepticism and anger. People dug into his past, uncovering stories of arrogance, of cruelty, of debts unpaid. And still, he called me. Sarah, his voice cracked in the latest voicemail. Anger replaced by something close to fear. Please, we can fix this. Just stop. Think about what you're doing. But I had thought about it. I had thought about nothing else. I deleted the message. That evening, as I reviewed the growing mountain of evidence, Emily called again. They want me to testify, she said. The investigators, they said my name on those accounts is enough to open a full case. Will you do it? I asked. Yes, she whispered, for all of us. When I ended the call, I sat in silence, the weight of it pressing on me. We were no longer just telling our stories. We were building a case strong enough to destroy him legally, financially, and socially. And for the first time in years, I felt powerful. But power comes with danger. That night, as I returned to my hotel, I noticed a car parked across the street. Its engine idled, lights dimmed. When I walked past, the driver looked away quickly. My instincts screamed. Michael was watching me. He knew he was losing, and desperation makes men reckless, but I refused to let fear control me again. I walked inside with my head held high, my spine straight. He could watch me all he wanted. Soon, he would have nothing left to see. As I locked the door behind me, I whispered the words that had become my mantra. You thought you could humiliate me, but I will be the one who buries you. And deep down, I knew his downfall was not just near, it had already begun. Downfall was not just near, it had already begun. The storm had broken, and for a few days, it seemed unstoppable. Michael's reputation was in ruins, his name trending in every newsfeed, his company's stock plummeting. I had thought that would be enough to cripple him, to strip away the armor he had worn so proudly. But I had underestimated him. Michael was not a man who surrendered quietly. He had built his empire through manipulation and intimidation, and he still believed those tools could save him. When charm failed, he turned to fear. The first sign came one morning when Laura called me, her voice trembling. He sent men to my office, she whispered. 2 of them, in suits, pretending to be clients. They asked questions, strange ones, about me, about you. They lingered until security made them leave. Sarah, he's sending people to scare us. My chest tightened. I had expected anger, but not this. Still, I forced calm into my voice. He's desperate. That means he knows he's losing. Don't let him see you're afraid. But inside, I was afraid, not for myself, but for the people who had helped me. Michael had money, influence, and a taste for revenge. He would not hesitate to destroy anyone who threatened him. That evening, I received my own warning. I returned to my hotel room to find the door ajar. My stomach dropped. Slowly, I pushed it open. Inside, nothing seemed out of place, except for a single envelope lying on the bed. My name was written across the front in bold, black ink. Hands trembling, I opened it. Inside was a single photograph me, leaving the park after meeting Emily. The image was grainy, but unmistakable. On the back, written in his handwriting, were the words, "Stop, or you'll regret it." I sat on the bed, the photo clutched in my hand, anger flooding my veins. He thought he could scare me back into silence, as he had done for years. But fear had lost its grip on me. I would not be broken again. The next morning, I met Emily at a quiet cafe. Her eyes darted nervously as she slid into the booth. "I think he's following me too," she whispered. "Yesterday, I saw the same black car outside my apartment 3 times. And this morning, I got an email from someone I don't know, warning me to stay out of his business." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "This is how he operates. He wants to isolate us, make us feel powerless. But we're not powerless anymore. We have the truth, and the truth is stronger than fear." Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "I'll keep going. I won't let him win." As the investigation deepened, Michael's desperation grew. Reporters unearthed more damning evidence. Whispers of offshore accounts became headlines. Investors abandoned him. The walls were closing in, and he knew it. So he lashed out harder. Laura called me late one night, her voice shaking. "Sarah, they froze my accounts. He pulled strings at the bank. I can't access my money." Rage boiled in my chest. "He's trying to starve us out, but it won't work. I'll cover you until this is over." Her gratitude was immediate, but I knew what it meant. Michael was not only attacking reputations, he was going for survival. Days later, I received another message from him. This one, a voicemail. His voice was colder now, stripped of charm. "You've made a mistake," he said. "You think you're in control, but you're not. You're nothing without me. I built you, and I can destroy you. Walk away now, or you'll lose more than you can imagine." I replayed the message twice, my jaw tight. Once, those words would have cut me to the bone. Once, I would have believed him. But now, I only heard desperation. He was unraveling, and every threat was proof. Still, I knew better than to underestimate him. He was cornered, and a cornered man is dangerous. The real danger came 2 nights later. I was walking back to the hotel when I felt it again, that prickling sensation of being watched. I quickened my pace, glancing behind me. A man in a dark coat followed at a distance. My heart pounded as I ducked into a side street, hoping to lose him. But when I turned again, he was closer. I broke into a run, my breath ragged. My hotel was only a block away. Bursting through the lobby doors, I didn't stop until I reached the elevator. When the doors closed, I finally exhaled, my body trembling. Whoever he was, he had been sent by Michael. The message was clear. I was not safe anymore. The next morning, I went straight to the authorities handling the case. I handed over the photo, the voicemail, everything. The lead investigator, a stern man with tired eyes, listened intently. "We're building a case," he assured me. "But understand, people like him, men with money and connections, they don't go down easily. You need to be prepared for a fight." "I am," I said firmly. "I've been fighting him for years. This time, I'm not alone." The investigator nodded, but his warning lingered in my mind. Michael still had power, and he was using every shred of it. That evening, I gathered with Laura and Emily in Laura's apartment. We sat together, our voices low, the weight of everything pressing on us. "He's trying to break us," Emily said softly, "but he doesn't realize we're stronger together." Laura lifted her glass. "To survival, and to justice." We clinked glasses, a fragile moment of solidarity in the storm. But even as we smiled, I knew the battle was far from over. Michael was wounded, but not defeated. And a wounded predator is the most dangerous of all. Later that night, as I stared out the window at the city lights, I whispered to myself, "You can threaten me, you can follow me, you can try to scare me, but you'll never own me again." The war was not over. It was only entering its deadliest phase. The morning sunlight should have felt warm, but instead, it carried the chill of a storm gathering on the horizon. I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating across the nightstand. Blary-eyed, I reached for it, expecting another worried message from Laura or Emily. Instead, the caller ID made my blood run cold. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Hello. A clipped voice responded. Sarah Jennings. Yes, this is Officer Daniels with the precinct. We need you to come down for questioning regarding a financial misconduct report filed against you. It is in your best interest to cooperate. The world tilted beneath me. What financial misconduct? I do not. The officer cut me off. We will discuss this at the station. Please come immediately. When the call ended, my hands shook. It could only mean one thing. Michael had made his move. I barely had time to gather my thoughts before another knock rattled the hotel door. 2 uniformed officers stood there, stern expressions fixed on their faces. One held out a paper. Sarah Jennings, you are hereby served. You need to appear for questioning. I stared at the document. The words blurred, but I could make out the accusations. Embezzlement, fraud, misappropriation of funds. All lies, but dangerous lies, backed by someone who still had powerful friends. Inside the interrogation room, the air was stale and heavy. Officer Daniels sat across from me, his eyes sharp. Mrs. Jennings, according to the report, there is evidence suggesting you funneled money from joint marital accounts into offshore holdings. Do you deny this? I laughed bitterly. Of course, I deny it. Those accounts belong to Michael. He is the one who has been hiding money overseas, not me. Daniels did not react. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed statements with my name highlighted, forged signatures that mimicked my handwriting. My stomach lurched. He set me up, I whispered. Daniels leaned forward. If that is true, you need to provide proof. Otherwise, this case may not go in your favor. For hours, I answered questions, explained timelines, and pleaded with them to dig deeper. By the time they released me, I felt hollow. Michael had not only tried to intimidate me, now he was trying to destroy me legally. Back at the hotel, Laura and Emily were waiting. One look at my face, and they knew what happened. Laura asked. I told them everything. Their shock quickly turned to fury. This is what he does. Emily spat. He twists the truth until the victim looks guilty. He thinks money can rewrite reality. I nodded grimly. We need to get ahead of this. If he wants a war in court, then we fight in court, but we fight smart. That night, I contacted a lawyer recommended by the investigator. Her name was Catherine Lee, a woman with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. When we met, she wasted no time. Michael Jennings has money and influence, she said. But influence crumbles under hard evidence. We will prove those documents are forgeries. I will bring in handwriting experts, financial analysts, anyone we need. But you have to be ready for a long, ugly fight. I am ready, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. I have been fighting him my entire marriage. I am not backing down now. The next few days were consumed by strategy. Catherine filed motions, requested discovery, and began unraveling Michael's carefully spun web. At the same time, journalists continued to dig, feeding the public hunger for scandal. Headlines screamed betrayal, fraud, and revenge. But Michael was relentless. He released statements painting himself as the victim, accusing me of plotting against him out of spite. He stood before cameras with his perfect smile, lying with the ease of a man who had practiced his entire life. She is trying to ruin me, because I left her, he declared to the press. This is nothing more than a bitter woman's vendetta. The words cut deep, but I refused to let them wound me, because I knew the truth, and more importantly, so did the people who mattered. Emily watched one of his press conferences with me, shaking her head. He is terrified. That is why he is doubling down. He is trying to rewrite the story before the ending catches him. Laura added quietly, but the ending is coming. Laura added quietly, but the ending is coming. Still, the attacks escalated. My bank account was frozen for investigation. Anonymous emails arrived daily, filled with threats and venom. One morning, I found graffiti sprayed on the side of the hotel. Liar, thief, fraud. Fear whispered that Michael was winning, that his power was too vast. But each time that fear rose, I forced myself to remember the women who sat beside me, the evidence we had gathered, and the man's own arrogance that would ultimately undo him. The breaking point came during a preliminary hearing. Michael was there, of course, sitting smugly in his tailored suit, his eyes glinting with malice when they met mine. He thought he had me cornered, but Catherine stood tall as she addressed the judge. Your Honor, We move to dismiss these charges on the grounds of falsified documentation. We have secured expert testimony that these signatures were forged and that the financial transfers were traced back to accounts solely controlled by Michael Jennings. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Michael's smirk faltered for the first time. The judge reviewed the documents, then looked directly at him. If what counsel says is true, this case will not only be dismissed, Mr. Jennings, but charges of fraud may be filed against you instead. Michael's jaw tightened. For the first time, I saw the mask crack. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. Questions flew. I stood before the cameras, my voice steady. I will not be silenced. I will not be intimidated. I will not be broken. This is not just my fight. It is every woman's fight who has been told to sit down and endure. I am standing, and I will keep standing until justice is done. The crowd erupted with applause. It was a moment I would never forget, a moment where the fear inside me finally died. But I knew Michael was not finished. He had lost ground, yes, but he would not stop until he was dragged down completely. That night, as I sat with Laura and Emily, I made a vow. No matter what he does next, we stay united. He can attack our money, our safety, even our names, but he cannot take our truth, and the truth will destroy him. The war was nearing its climax. Michael had played his strongest card and failed. Now, only one question remained. What final act of desperation would he attempt before the end? The night after the hearing, the city felt different. The air hummed with unease, as if the world itself knew something was about to break. For the first time since the nightmare began, I had glimpsed Michael falter. The courtroom had stripped away the invincibility he wore like a second skin, revealing the cracks beneath. But men like Michael do not crumble gracefully. They thrash, claw, and destroy as they fall. And that night, I learned just how far he was willing to go. It began with silence. No phone calls, no anonymous emails, no shadowy figures outside the hotel. For 2 full days, the harassment stopped. At first, I wanted to believe it meant he was retreating. Laura warned me otherwise. Silence is his weapon, she said grimly. He is planning something bigger, something that will hit where you least expect it. She was right. On the 3rd night, I returned to my hotel room to find the door unlocked. My pulse spiked. I stepped inside, scanning every corner. Nothing seemed disturbed until I saw the dresser. Sitting on top was a single object, my wedding photo with Michael. The glass shattered. The frame bent. Pinned beneath the shards was a note. You belong to me. Always. I backed away, my chest heaving. The hotel had cameras, but when security checked, the footage from my floor was missing. Someone had erased it. Michael's silence was over. The next day, Catherine, my lawyer, called with grim news. Sarah, Michael filed an emergency motion. He is claiming you are mentally unstable, that you fabricated evidence against him, and that you are a danger to yourself and others. He attached statements from people at his company, even old acquaintances. He wants the court to question your credibility, to strip you of any financial claim, and possibly put you under psychiatric evaluation. My knees nearly buckled. He is trying to paint me as insane. Yes, Catherine said firmly, but it will not work. His evidence is weak and inconsistent. Still, we need to be ready. This is his scorched earth tactic. If he cannot silence you, he will try to discredit you completely. When I told Laura and Emily, their faces reflected both rage and fear. Emily clenched her fists. He tried the same with me once, said I was unstable when I finally left him. He nearly convinced my parents I was crazy. But the truth always came out. It will again. Her words steadied me, but my heart still raced. Michael's war was no longer about reputation or money. It was about annihilation. That night, the threats became personal in a way I had dreaded. Laura received a call at home, a distorted voice warning her to choose wisely who she stood beside. Emily found her tires slashed outside her apartment, and I, alone in my hotel room, woke at 2 a.m. to find a text from an unknown number. You will not survive this. Fear tried to take root again, but I tore it out. Fear was what Michael wanted. Fear was how he had controlled me for years. Not anymore. The following morning, I stood before cameras outside the courthouse. My voice shook at first, but then grew stronger. Michael Jennings is not just trying to destroy me, he is trying to destroy the truth. He wants you to believe I am unstable, that I am lying, that every sacrifice I made in that marriage meant nothing. But I am here, standing, and I will not be silenced. This is bigger than me. This is about every woman who has ever been told she is crazy for daring to speak out. We are not crazy. We are survivors, and we will not back down. The crowd erupted in applause. Reporters shouted questions. For the first time, I felt the tide truly shifting, not just against Michael, but against the culture of silence that had protected men like him for too long. But Michael was not finished. That evening, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. His voice slithered through the line, low and venomous. You think you are winning, Sarah. You are not. You are humiliating yourself. Every word you speak digs your grave deeper. When this is over, you will have nothing. No money, no friends, no reputation. And when the world turns its back on you, I will be waiting. Because you are mine, and you always will be. For a moment, my old self, the woman who once trembled under his control, rose inside me. But then I remembered Emily's tears, Laura's courage, Catherine's determination, and my own vow. You are wrong, Michael, I said, my voice steady. I was never yours. Not then, not now, not ever. And the world will see you for what you are. I hung up before he could answer. My body shook, but this time, it was not fear. It was fury. The next morning, the hearing on his emergency motion began. Michael sat across the courtroom, his expression calm, almost smug. He thought his lies would prevail, but Catherine stood and dismantled his accusations piece by piece. Your Honor, she declared, the evidence presented by Mr. Jennings is fabricated and contradictory. Witnesses contradict each other. Psychological claims are based on hearsay. Furthermore, we have presented sworn affidavits from licensed professionals attesting to Mrs. Jennings' stability and sound mind. This is nothing more than an attempt to silence and discredit a victim. The judge listened intently, his eyes narrowing at Michael. Finally, he spoke. This court will not be used as a weapon of intimidation. The motion is denied. Gasps filled the courtroom. Michael's mask cracked again, anger flashing in his eyes. He had gambled everything on this move, and it had failed. Outside, the crowd cheered as I walked down the courthouse steps. But even amid the celebration, I knew the war was not yet over. Michael was cornered now, more dangerous than ever. That night, as I sat with Laura and Emily, we held hands, the three of us bound by scars and determination. He will strike again, Emily whispered. Yes, I said quietly, but when he does, we will be ready, because the truth is stronger than his lies, and no matter what he tries, he cannot erase the truth. The city lights glittered outside the window, cold and sharp. I knew the final battle was coming. Michael had tried charm, intimidation, legal warfare, and lies. None of it had broken me. Whatever his last move would be, it would come soon, and when it did, I would not face it alone. The night before the final hearing, the city was restless. Thunder rolled in the distance, lightning cutting across the sky like jagged scars. I could not sleep. Every muscle in my body hummed with tension. Michael had been cornered in court, humiliated in the press, and abandoned by allies who once sang his praises. But he had not been defeated yet. I knew him too well. He would never surrender quietly. He would set fire to everything around him before admitting defeat. Around midnight, there was a knock at my door. For a moment, fear gripped me. But when I opened it, I found Laura and Emily standing there. They had the same haunted look in their eyes that I carried. We could not sleep either, Emily admitted softly. We thought we should be together tonight. We sat in silence for hours, the storm raging outside. Our bond had been forged in betrayal and pain, but it had become unbreakable. Together, we waited for the dawn that would decide everything. The next morning, the courthouse was a fortress of flashing cameras and murmuring crowds. Protesters held signs demanding justice. Reporters shouted questions, microphones thrust toward me as I walked inside with Laura and Emily at my side. Inside, the tension was suffocating. Michael sat at the defense table, his suit immaculate, his hair perfectly styled. But beneath the polished surface, he looked gaunt, his eyes burning with a dangerous fire. He had the air of a man with nothing left to lose. The hearing began with the presentation of final evidence, bank statements, forged documents, witness testimony. Catherine methodically dismantled every lie, her voice calm and precise. Each word drove Michael deeper into the pit he had dug for himself. But then Michael stood. Against his attorneys' whispered protests, he rose and demanded to speak. Your Honor, he said, his voice trembling with controlled fury, This is a circus. My ex-wife has orchestrated a campaign to ruin me. These women, he pointed at Emily and Laura, his finger shaking, are liars she recruited to destroy my name. None of this is real. It is all a conspiracy fueled by bitterness and jealousy. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. I felt the familiar chill of his gaslighting tactics, the same poison he had used on me for years. But this time, it fell flat. The judge silenced him with a single raised hand. Mr. Jennings, the judge said firmly, sit down. This is not your stage. This is a court of law. Michael obeyed, but his eyes found mine across the room. They blazed with hatred, a silent promise that he would never forgive me for defying him. The judge recessed for deliberation, leaving the room buzzing with tension. As I stepped outside into the hallway, Michael intercepted me. His attorney tried to pull him back, but he shook him off. You think you have won? He hissed, his face inches from mine. You think the world will love you when this is over? They will forget you. They will spit on you. And when they do, you will come crawling back, because you are nothing without me. For years, those words would have crushed me. But now, I looked him in the eye and said, you are wrong, Michael. I was nothing with you. Without you, I am free. His face twisted with rage. He lunged as if to grab me, but officers intervened, pulling him back. The crowd gasped, cameras flashing, capturing his outburst for the world to see. When court reconvened, the judge delivered the ruling. After reviewing the evidence, it is the opinion of this court that the charges brought by Mr. Jennings are without merit. Furthermore, there is overwhelming indication that Mr. Jennings engaged in fraudulent practices, including the falsification of financial records. The court is recommending further investigation into these activities, effective immediately. All of Mr. Jennings' motions are denied, and the protective orders requested by Mrs. Jennings and her co-plaintiffs are granted. The room erupted. Laura clutched my hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. Emily let out a sob of relief, and Michael sat frozen, his empire crumbling around him. It was over, but his final act came not in the courtroom, but in the streets outside. As we left the courthouse, surrounded by reporters, Michael broke free from his attorney and charged forward. His face was red, his voice a roar. You ruined me, he screamed. Do you hear me, Sarah? You ruined everything. The cameras caught every second as officers restrained him, dragging him back while he fought like a man possessed. His polished mask was gone forever, replaced by the raw ugliness beneath. The world saw him for what he truly was. Later that evening, I sat with Laura and Emily in a quiet cafe. The storm had passed, and the night was calm again. We raised our glasses together. To freedom, Laura said. To truth, Emily added. And to never belonging to anyone but ourselves again, I finished. We clinked glasses, our laughter breaking through the remnants of fear. For the first time in years, I felt light, as if chains had fallen from my soul. In the weeks that followed, Michael's empire collapsed. Investigations mounted, investors fled, and his name became synonymous with disgrace. I stopped following the headlines eventually. His downfall no longer mattered to me. What mattered was the life I was finally free to build. I moved into a small house by the sea, its windows filled with sunlight and salt air. Laura visited often, bringing stories of her own healing. Emily started a foundation for women escaping abusive relationships. Together, we transformed our pain into power. And as I stood on the shore one evening, the waves crashing at my feet, I whispered to the wind, I am free. For years, I had believed Michael's lies, that I was nothing without him, that I was weak, that my voice did not matter. But I had learned the truth. I was stronger than his cruelty. My voice was powerful. My story mattered. And to everyone listening now, I say this: if you are trapped in someone else's shadow, if you are told you are worthless, if you are silenced by fear, remember my story. Remember that freedom is possible, that truth is stronger than lies, and that you are not alone. Before you go, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this story. Someone out there might need to hear it tonight.